Welcome to another video, another upload brought to you by your one and only literary pharaoh. I wanted to talk to you guys about the ramifications of temptation, the meaning of temptation, and how we perceive temptation. You understand? Because in the world we live in today, you hear the word temptation, and this is usually coming from the themes and the rhetoric that's put forth from the Bible, from a religious lens, from a religious context. A lot of the times, a lot of the things that we value in life, a lot of the things that we add meaning to or put meaning to, always has a background or a foundational influence that comes from a biblical theme. We believe that things are black and white, that it's good or evil, that it's this or that. Well, I'm here to say that when you're dealing with quantum physics, quantum mechanics, undergirded by sacred geometry, astronomy, anatomy, when you're dealing with so many other disciplines and studies that don't fit into our status quo or traditional forms of existence or form of existence, we tend to marginalize those other concepts and we put those in the back burner or categorize those as being fringe concepts, and we tell ourselves that these are weird things to study, they're demonic, they're of the devil. So we close our eyes, remaining blind, and we continue to follow dogma and doctrine, and unbeknownst to us that those dogmas and doctrines that we follow have a deep hand in manipulation and manipulative strategies and tactics. You know, you may believe that what you're following is true, but you also have to realize that what you're following is also a form of deception, because it's coming from the construct of this world. The world that we live in, the educational systems and the truths that are put forth, or the alleged truths that are put forth, are never done genuinely to feed the conscience of the human soul, to enable that human soul to ascend and elevate and to aspire to live to your higher self. It doesn't do that. They don't do that. What they do is give you information to mislead you and to put you in a particular category, to have you live in a life that they want you to live. And that life that they want you to live feeds the beast. It feeds the system. And I've told you guys before, if you don't understand what the beast is not a mark on your forehead. It's not a mark that you get in your hand. The beast system is a physical concept in the abstract, and it's also something that can be conceived in the mind. Let me explain what I mean. It's physical in the abstract because the system that we live in, we're governed by a certain psychology. We're governed by a certain way that we're told how to live. We're taught how to live. We're taught how to eat. We're taught our values. We don't manufacture our values out of human ingenuity or out of our human metric or out of our human proclivity or out of our human instincts, because we've been told and taught that our human instincts are inherently evil, because the Bible tells you that you're born evil. So we no longer lean to our own desires because we feel like everything that we desire is stewed in a mire of evil. So what we do, we abandon those desires, all right? We abandon those preferred things, and we try to put ourselves in a metric that's pleasing to some benevolent cosmic deity that has our best interest in mind. But when we do that, we're subtly, all right, diminishing and atrophying. We're causing an atrophy to our desires. So therefore, we become non-aligned, and we end up needing calibration. When I say non-aligned, I mean that we become unhinged from what being human is. So when I talk about temptation, which I'm going to get to here in a second, I'm not talking about temptation in the sense that you've heard it from the biblical context of, temptation to sin. Why does temptations always have to be put in a category of sin? It's not sin. It's just human. It's a human experience. No different than a person being tempted to eat when they're starving. Is starving a sin? No, it isn't. It's not evil to want to eat. It's not even evil to be a glutton. Being a glutton is not good to your biochemistry, of course, from an anatomy perspective and from a biomolecular construct in terms of how the molecules of foods that you eat and how your digestive system works and how the production of enzymes works and how everything that you eat impacts your mitochondria. From that perspective, yes, it's sin, but not sin in terms of sending you to hell sin. It's sin because it's bad to your biochemistry. It's not good for your body. There's a difference. See, I want you guys to understand that when I talk about sin or talk about bad things, I'm always talking about bad things as it relates to your psychology and your anatomy and your body and your physiology. I'm always talking about things from that perspective. Okay? So if you do something that's quote unquote sinful or bad, it's not because you're not pleasing some God that you've never seen, some mythical made up being or some no God that people have been trained to worship or brainwashed to worship. It's all about how what you do impacts your biochemistry. Bio means life. Chemistry means the way things work from a chemical perspective. We're chemical beings. We're also electrical beings as well. So, when you're being tempted in life to do something that seems as if it's going to give you a quick fix, those are always tests in your life. I'll give you an example. I'm going to stick with food because food is something that we can all relate to because we all eat. If you're hungry, right, there's a temptation. You say, but why do you call it temptation? I'm supposed to eat. But yes, but I want you to understand that no different than when a man has a temptation to try to have sex with a woman, there's no different than a man having temptation to go eat food when he's hungry. It's all a need. All right? Psychological need, physiological need. It's a need. It's not about being sinful or not. It's about, do you have the capacity to make a choice to say no to something and not seek that immediate satisfaction? Now, on the contrary, all right, to what I just said, to that argument, I'm not stating that if you give in to a temptation, that makes you a bad person. I'm not saying that either. But what I am telling you is that there are many, many benefits that come from not giving in to your temptation and seeking that immediate fix or that immediate, swift feedback in return off of what you've done. So I'll give you an example. If a person's hungry and they quickly satisfy their hunger by going somewhere to eat, number one, there's nothing wrong about that. But if they do that, they've satisfied a need for that moment. Does that mean that they're never going to be hungry again? No. Once the chemical enzymes kick in and their food has been broken down, stored for energy production, and some of those things have been eliminated through waste production, excrement, going to the restroom, i.e. through urine or bowel movements. After that's done, there will come a time where that person will get hungry again. So the immediate fix doesn't fix a human problem as we're told, because we're told that temptation is a problem. But I want you to look at the word temptation and don't look at it as something that's attached to sin. Because from a biblical perspective, we've always heard that temptation means that you're being tempted to do something evil. But I'm telling you that that's not what it means. That's indoctrination and brainwashing. Temptation, that's not what temptation is. Temptation could be anything. It doesn't have to be something that's bad or good. It's just you having a natural human desire for something, because that's the way we're wired. We're wired to want to eat when we're hungry, and we're wired to seek sexual pleasure when we want it. Those things are not bad. What is negative to your biochemistry and to your psychology is when you cannot control your temptation and you give in to every temptation that you have, or every human urge. In this third dimensional realm, all right, we've been taken away from our spirit sense. That keen sense of spirituality has been taken away from us, and we've been robbed of that. We're no longer sensitive to spiritual things. We're just compounded by the physical things that we are immersed in. So we are so physical that we don't take time to meditate, to even think about the spiritual. A person eats, they get satisfied for that time, but they will get hungry again. But if that person says, you know what, I'm hungry, but I'm not going to eat, I'm going to wait. You're training your mind, you're training your soul, all right, to control your physical realm. So as you become a person that masters the physical realm, the spirit realm becomes open to you, where you can now dictate what you want in life, because energy transfers. When you continually give into the physical, you're subduing the spiritual. When you can stave off the physical, you're enhancing your spiritual. Enhancing your spiritual gives you peace. All right? It gives you internal rest. It recalibrates the body system. It puts your body in a survival state, which ultimately, consequently, allows your body to actually function better when your body is put in survival mode. If you're always feeding your urges, then you become a slave to the physical realm. And being a slave to the physical realm incapacitates you from actually receiving anything that's spiritual. That's why a lot of people can play spirituality. They can eat like fools and give in to all their physical desires and go to church and act like going to church is spiritual. Just because you don't have sex and you deem yourself to be celibate, but if you're a glutton, you're no different than a fornicator. Because a fornicator gives in to their temptations. No different than a fat person who wakes up at 2 a.m. to stuff their mouths with ice cream and stuff their mouths with all sorts of junk, and they go to church, overweight, obese, with diabetes, and they're sitting there saying, oh, Lord, I'm waiting for you to give me a breakthrough. How asinine is that? How stupid is that? They both function on the same plane. There's no difference. There's no difference in a glutton and a fornicator, because you're giving in. The point is, you're giving in to temptation. Temptation is a test. Temptation is a tool. Temptation is used around you to see how you're going to react. Are you going to allow the physical realm to dictate your behavior, or are you going to take control of your physical and say, no, I'm not going to eat right now. I'm going to wait and eat later. That's why when people who fast, they want to categorize it as being spiritual. They say, oh, I'm fasting to get blessings from the Lord. If I fast and I don't eat, God will bless me. It's not about you getting blessed from shit. You fasting is good for your body. Fasting is something that's good for your whole biochemistry. It's just good for you. All right? It makes you feel better. It makes you think better. It makes you healthier. It makes you sharper. And it would help to fast more, especially with all this toxic food that we are surrounded with. I think it's in our best interest not to eat so much. So I equate eating with fornicating. It's the same thing. They're all urges that we seek. It's just people like to demonize fornication as something that's, oh, you're evil, you're going to hell, and all this other stuff. And while a person who overeats, they're deemed to be, oh, it's okay. You're just eating. No, you're giving into your physical urges as well. All right? One is no different than the other. So we should all view temptation as a tool that's literally used to test our resolve, all right, to see where we stand, to see if we're giving in to the physical, or are we going to give in to the spiritual. All right, that's what temptations are for. Temptations come not because you're an evil person. Temptations come because it's a test. Every temptation is a test. But just because you give into the temptation doesn't mean you failed the test. It just means that you're not subduing the physical realm. You're not having an equal output. There's supposed to be a level of balance when involving the way you operate, right? You can't always give into the physical. You can't always do that, because then you become imbalanced, because it means that you're all physical, not spiritual. Sometimes you're not supposed to give in. Sometimes when you have the power to do something, doesn't mean you should do it just because you have the power to do it. All right? Just because you have the power to do something does not mean you have to exercise that power and do it. You could actually wait and say no. All right? And do something different. You end up having more power when you actually don't express your power. Having the urge to always show how powerful you are, or show off what you can get, be it fornicating, sleeping around, or seeking pleasures in life and all that other stuff. If that's what you're about, then if that's all you do, then that's what you are. You are a product of the physical. All right, so just think about things from that perspective. And man, if you have a temptation and you know that what you're about to do is whether you feel it's wrong or right, just ask yourself, do I need this? And if I don't do this, what's going to happen? You're not going to die. It's only going to strengthen your spirit man. You ever, when you read mythical texts, because they deem them to be mythical, but I don't believe some of those texts are mythical. I believe a lot of those things that come from the Sumerian tablets and those things that come from those ancient texts, they have truths in them. It's just that our society has made us categorize those things as myths, but they're far from myths. And when I read those things, you get a lot of insight into what spirituality really is. Spirituality is just overcoming the physical realm. So when people ask me, how did you only eat once a day? Well, I'm eating once a day because once I eat once, I'm not worried about food anymore. Now I can have my mind focused on other things. But there are people who constantly eat. I work with people who, they just eat around the clock. They're always putting something in their damn mouths. That's all they think about is food, snacks. You become an animal. You're an animal. You don't even have time to actually meditate in yourself, or meditate on your own thoughts, or reflect on your behavior, or reflect on what you want your life to be like. So when you're not leaning into your temptation or giving into your temptations, it doesn't make you holy. It just makes you smart, and it gives room for your spirit man to actually ascend. But the more you give into every physical urge, then it just shows that you don't really have control of your physical. The third dimensional realm has you captivated, and you become captive. Which is why a lot of people, they listen to news, they listen to Trump, because it's all fear-based. It's all a stimulant to their senses, to their sensory perceptors. Sight, all right, their emotions, fear, those are all emotions that impact the sensory aspect of a human being. So people move off of fear. I'm afraid. Donald Trump is going to do this. Or when it was Biden's going to do this. That's all everybody talks about. I'm not going to be like everybody else. I've always been that way. I told you guys a story. When I was in middle school, a fight broke out. All the kids in the cafeteria were running to go see the fight. I got up and walked the opposite direction. Not one student was doing what I was doing. Everybody, even the kids who were normally good, they still sat there looking up to see the fight. I literally turned my back to turn away, to walk the opposite direction. There has to be somebody that thinks. When everybody is moving with the herd, somebody has to say stop for a second, say, hold on, whoa, 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 whoa. Everybody's doing the same thing? No, I'm going to be that guy that does something different. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm just saying, when everyone's moving in the same direction, it's kind of smart to kind of think to move in the other direction. And even if you're wrong in moving in the other direction, but at least you're moving off of your own individual, autonomous longings. Like, you're doing it because you want to do it. Voluntarily, you're making the choice to say, I'm not going to move in this direction. I'm going to move here. I'm not going to just move with everybody because, oh, well, everybody else is running. Let me run too. You have to be an individual. All right. So, men, temptation doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. Whether it's temptation to overeat, whether it's temptation to drink alcohol, whether it's a temptation to sleep around, whether you're a married woman or a married man and you're having temptations of having an affair, those things happen. And you may say, but that's not natural human urge to cheat on your wife or cheat on your husband. It is natural if some of your needs are not being met at home. Like I did a video a while back. I told you guys that most people's time is spent at work. Married couples, people are spending more of their time at work. They're not spending time together. You come home to your wife and husband, but then you wake up and go back to work. If you calculate the percentages in terms of how much time you're spending at work with other people versus how much time you're spending with your spouse, you'll be very, very alarmed and shocked that you're spending more time with other people than you are with your husband or with your wife. You may have a coworker of the opposite sex that you talk to more than you talk to your wife. You guys share the same passions because you guys are doing the same job. You guys share the same challenges. You see them every day at their best because people dress up nice, decent to come to work. So you may start seeing this man or this woman as, they kind of look good. But you don't go to work premeditating and say, oh yeah, I'm going to cheat on my wife or cheat on my husband today. Yeah, I'm going to do it. It's something that happens over time. But it's still a temptation. It's not evil to have the temptation. It's how you manage the temptation. Now, of course, there are consequences that comes from cheating on your husband or cheating on your wife, of course. You know, you'll be in financial trouble. You could lose privileges of seeing your kids. You end up having just weekend visits. Your wife, another man comes in your home. Now he's the stepdaddy to your other kid. So it's a mess. There are a lot of things to factor in. But take away those other things that I factored in. Still, from a cosmic and from a ethereal perspective, that transcends this third dimensional realm, much grander in the macro. You owe it to yourself not to give in to every temptation. Not because your wife may find out or your husband may find out. No, that's surface stuff. That's simpletons. Of course, that mitigates your behavior to a sense, to domesticate you, because you don't want to do anything to make you lose your home or have your wife or husband take half of your money. Like, you don't want to get into the litigation thing where you're going to court, paying court fees, your kids are split, and kids are wondering why is mommy and daddy not together. Like, it's a whole mess. That's bad in and of itself. But take all that away. You still don't want to give in to every temptation. Especially if you know the temptation, if you give into it, has negative ramifications. The negative ramification is just an extra layer to let you know not to give in. But that goes with everything in life. You don't have to give in to that ice cream. You don't have to give in to those potato chips. You don't have to give in to all that bread. Everything that we give into is bad for us. But the things that we hate are good for us. Abstaining from desires is good for the soul. It empowers you. When you give into everything, you lose your strength. Not physical strength. I'm talking about mental strength. That's why people are so rattled. Americans are weak-minded because they feed their desires so much that whenever they do face a challenge, they don't know how to handle it because they're so used to having their desires met that when they don't get their desire met by somebody or there's conflict, they rattle, they break. But a person like me, nothing bothers me. I just go to work and come back. while everyone's breaking down, I'm looking around like, is there something wrong with me? How come I'm not feeling what you're feeling? Well, I'm depriving myself of a lot of earthly pleasures. So when it comes down to some kind of conflict, or somebody says something or does something and people are losing their minds over it, I'm like, okay, I have other things that I'm struggling with. I'm so disciplined that that's a nothing. But when you are the spoiled teenager eating ice cream and cookies every day, the one time someone puts vegetables on your plate, you start crying. I'm giving you that analogy or that comparison to how Americans are. Americans are the fat kid that's stuffing their faces with ice cream, full of pleasure and sweets and candy, just slurping it down. The minute they get something that's challenging, and usually those challenging things are not actually bad. Those challenging things are put there as resistance to strengthen you mentally, and sometimes to strengthen you physically, depending on what it is. But whatever situation is put in front of you, it's put there to enhance you. But we break down because we're cowards. We're weak-minded. We're weak-minded people. We're not strong. You don't even have to be smart in America to make it. You really have to be strong-minded to make it. Because the educational system is trash. The educational system, kids are so behind, it's not even funny. All right? It's embarrassing. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. View temptation as a tool to strengthen your spirit, man. And how you handle that temptation is going to dictate your spirit life. Not going to church, not reading the fucking Bible, has nothing to do with that. I'm human, but you have a spark of divinity that's inside of you. You can't see it, you can't feel it, but you are aware of it. So when you have a temptation, which is coming something from the inside, triggered by things that are happening hormonally, that's your spirit sense. Spirit is the science that you can't see. Science means you're observing things that you can see through your observable senses. Touch, sight, smell, all that stuff. You're observing things. You're making calculations. But it's hard to see a temptation. But temptation is contrived and sparked and cultivated by hormones. Because we are hormonal beings. We are electrical beings. We are electrically charged. So when we have those things happening within us, and we have a temptation to something, be it food or be it attracted to the opposite sex, and then you're tempted to do something, that temptation is good, because that's the tool that can be used to enhance your spirit, man, depending on how you react or respond to the temptation. Turn away from desires. Isn't that what Jesus was doing? Even though I don't believe in that story, I don't believe in the Jesus narrative, but let's use that for an example. Things will happen. He would turn the other eye, do things that were nice. He had the power to destroy, because he had the power to kill anybody who was messing with him, but he didn't. He did not. Holding off what you feel is your God-given right infuses your spirit, man, with the strength that it needs. But when you continue to exude or exert the physical and feed the physical, then all you become is a slave of the physical system, the third dimensional realm. And you become more susceptible to be indoctrinated and brainwashed by misinformation from the mainstream media. It goes hand in hand. Physical beings are easily manipulated. Most people that go to churches, I would say 90 to 95% of people who go to churches are all physical beings. They don't feed their spiritual. They think that praying is spiritual. Praying has nothing to do with being spiritual. You're just mumbling to yourself. How you deal with temptation is what makes you spiritual. Chemical addictions. Can you say no to that sugar? That's why I always say, and it sounds stupid when I say how you eat, how you sleep, and how you treat people lets me know what kind of spirit person you are. How you eat, how you sleep, and how you treat people. I don't care if you treat people nice. If you eat like a glutton, then you're not spiritual. That means you can't even control the temptation to go in there and get those bad snacks that are bad for you. Because those bad snacks that are bad for you are bad for your biochemistry. They're bad for your digestion. They're bad for your lymphatic system or your immune system. That's what they call it, but it's really your lymphatic system. It's bad for your heart. All right, so I'm gonna leave it there, guys. This video has gone long enough. It's about 30 minutes in. Leave a comment, tell me what you guys think, and remember, your health is your wealth. Peace. Bye.